Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. We continue our conversation now with former Education Commissioner David Hespe and principal at the Matawan Aberdeen Middle School, Aaron Eyler. Thank you both. You were both on the task force. You chaired the task force about school safety back in 2015. I know it was a big document, but what were some of the most important recommendations?
Well, the task force really looked at this in a multidimensional way, knowing that you just can't rely on prevention, or you just can't rely on hardening the schools or training or planning. You need to have all of those combined in a comprehensive whole. So that's the way they approached it. They made specific recommendations regarding sharing of information and communication, specific recommendations about how to harden your school, limit egresses, make certain that all your doors can be locked, training recommendations as well, because ultimately that's going to be the core. The number one way to prevent any violent situation in schools is normally going to be reliance on human beings and their ability to prevent and react. And so we really did try to address it in a very comprehensive way.
Are you satisfied? I mean, did they go out and make sure that your recommendations were adhered to? Are you satisfied that they are being adhered?
Well, I'm very excited about the implementation of the school safety security specialist, which was a recommendation that came out of the task force, which is now resulting every district is going to have to name a school employee, or I'm sorry, a school administrator to be this essentially liaison. To me, that was the most important recommendation that the task force made, and I am unbelievably excited to see that it's being implemented into law.
Now, you both would agree that because of your task force, schools are safer in New Jersey. I would assume that you believe that.
Well, absolutely. The recommendations there, I think, have been taken to heart by the schools of the state. The schools are participating in a heavy amount of drills. When I was commissioner, I went to a number of them, and schools have found them very valuable. State team will come, a law enforcement team will come, and we'll work through a scenario, and they're very valuable for a camp.
Is it time for another task force?
Prior to us looking at another task force, we should really exploit it. And what I mean by that is the Office of School Emergency Preparedness will send a team out of guys who do this for a living. They will walk through your active shooter drill, your lockdown drill with you, and they will give you a full report as to areas where you can improve, areas where you're doing a great job. And I wish that every school would take advantage of that opportunity and try to bring that team out.
No, that's fascinating. That means that you didn't just fix the boat and then that's it, but you fixed the boat and sent maintenance along with it. Let me ask you a couple of things that are out there as solutions. Should we have more guns in school to combat somebody that could show up with a gun? Should teachers be armed?
Well, obviously, in the end, that becomes a local decision. One of the things that came out of the task force and something that was also signed into law was the idea of this Class 3 officer, who can be a retired officer who is eligible to carry. And that would be an agreement worked out with local law enforcement and the District Board of Education. And I would urge and I would think that that would be the logical next step prior to discussing anything about arming teachers and things along that nature.
On March 13th or 14th, now I'm forgetting what day it is, I think it's the 14th, there's going to be a walkout at some schools across the country. Are there any New Jersey schools? Is Matawan Aberdeen taking part in that?
I'm not aware of any chatter about it, particularly at my middle school, but I haven't heard anything throughout the district.
Do you think that's helpful?
Well, I think walking out of school is not helpful, but I think students finding their own voice, being advocates for their own safety. It's their lives that are on the line. I think that's a very positive thing. And the messages we're hearing now that we don't want adults advocating for us, we want to advocate for ourselves because we think that's the way this debate is going to get settled, and we're the ones dying in these school buildings. I think that voice is very positive, and I think will be a very positive addition to the debate.
Yet walking out of school creates a security problem, doesn't it?
And that's really the crux of the issue, right? If this is a well-known event, if we're saying that on this date at this time, kids are going to be walking out of the building, if people are urging them to do things like that, aren't we creating a greater safety risk than having them in the classrooms, having students advocate the appropriate way, getting guidance from, teachers, parents, but walking out of a school is a bad idea. And I think that we can all sit here and kind of understand why we should not be advocating for kids to leave the building. That, to me, is the greatest security risk when they don't have the protection of the building
That's
itself.
a great point, and thank you so much for doing this. I could talk to you for another hour, but thank you so much, Commissioner David Hespe and Principal Aaron Eyler. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Still to come, a Jersey man comes up with a new way to keep our children safer. That's next on this special edition of Jersey Matters.